Imagine being at your lowest point, working long hours at a job that barely keeps the lights on, only to make a single decision that would change your life forever. This is the story of Jake, an ordinary gas station attendant whose act of kindness turned into something extraordinary. Jake groaned as his alarm buzzed at 5 a.m. Another day at the gas station. The pay was meager, the customers often rude, and his dreams of opening a small mechanic shop felt like a distant fantasy. But Jake wasn't a quitter. At 26, he had learned the value of hard work from his late father, a mechanic who taught him to always lend a hand to those in need. By 6 a.m., Jake was at the pump, sipping stale coffee and bracing himself for another uneventful shift. The sun hadn't fully risen, and the streets were quiet except for the occasional rumble of a passing truck. That's when he saw her. A sleek, black sedan pulled into the station at an awkward angle, its tires screeching slightly. The driver's door opened, and a young woman stepped out, clutching her left arm. Her face was pale, her movements shaky, and Jake immediately noticed the blood seeping through the sleeve of her jacket. "Mom, are you okay?" Jake called out, rushing toward her. I need help," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I hurt my arm. Badly. I think I might have hit something sharp when I swerved off the road earlier." Jake didn't hesitate. "Come inside, let me take a look." Inside the small gas station office, Jake grabbed the first aid kit from under the counter. The woman, who introduced herself as Lily, winced as Jake carefully removed her jacket to reveal a deep gash on her forearm. "This needs stitches," Jake said, frowning, "but I can at least clean it and stop the bleeding for now." He worked quickly, his rough, calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the wound and wrapped it tightly. Lily watched him with a mix of pain and gratitude. "You didn't have to help," she said softly. "Most people would have ignored me." Jake shrugged. "I couldn't just stand by. You looked like you needed help." Lily smiled faintly. "Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me." As Jake finished tending to her arm, a car horn blared outside. Lily's face paled further. "Oh no, he found me," she whispered, her voice filled with dread. "Who?" Jake asked, alarmed. Before she could answer, a large man stepped into the station. He wore a scowl and an expensive suit, and his sharp gaze immediately landed on Lily. "Lily, what were you thinking driving off like that?" the man barked. "Do you know how worried I've been?" "Dad, I needed space," Lily replied, her tone defensive but weary. Jake's eyebrows shot up. "Dad?" The man turned to Jake, his expression softening slightly. "You're the one who helped her." Jake nodded. "She was hurt. I just did what anyone would do." The man extended a hand. "I'm Robert Sinclair, Lily's father, and I owe you a debt of gratitude." Jake didn't know how to respond. Robert Sinclair, the billionaire real estate mogul? He had seen the man's face on countless billboards and magazine covers. "It's no big deal," Jake mumbled, suddenly feeling self-conscious about his grease-stained uniform. But Robert wasn't listening. He was too busy inspecting Lily's bandaged arm. "You should have called me," he said softly. "I would have sent help." "I didn't think it was a big deal," Lily replied. "Jake took care of me." Robert turned back to Jake, his expression thoughtful. "You've got good instincts and a kind heart. That's rare these days." Over the next week, Jake thought little of the encounter. Life at the gas station continued as usual until a black SUV pulled up one morning and Robert stepped out. "Mr. Sinclair?" Jake asked, baffled. "I've been thinking about what you did for Lily," Robert said, "and I want to repay your kindness." "That's really not necessary," Jake said quickly. Robert smiled. "I insist. You mentioned you wanted to open a mechanic shop one day. I'd like to invest in your dream. Consider it a thank you for helping my daughter when she needed it most." Jake was speechless. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Robert said with a chuckle. Months later, Jake stood in front of his brand new auto repair shop, Jake's Garage. The sign gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of how far he had come. Lily stopped by often, her arm fully healed. She and Jake had become good friends, and she loved reminding him of the day they met. "All of this because you decided to help a stranger," she said one day, gesturing to the bustling shop. Jake smiled. "My dad always said kindness has a way of coming back to you." And for Jake, that kindness had turned his life around in ways he never could have imagined. Months later, Jake stood proudly in front of Jake's Garage, his dream finally a reality. The shop bustled with activity, customers coming in, tools clinking, and engines roaring. On the wall behind the counter hung a framed photo of Jake, Lily, and Robert Sinclair on the day of the shop's grand opening. Lily often stopped by, her arm now fully healed. On one visit, she leaned against the counter, watching Jake work. "You know," she said with a smile, "all of this started with a simple act of kindness. Imagine if you hadn't helped me that day." Jake chuckled, wiping his hands on a rag. "I wasn't expecting anything in return. My dad always said, 'Do the right thing, and life has a way of surprising you.'" "And surprise you, it did?" Lily said with a grin. Jake looked around his thriving shop, the sound of laughter and life filling the air. "Yeah, it really did." Jake's story proves that even the simplest act of kindness can change your life in unimaginable ways. Let his journey be a reminder that hope and compassion can lead to incredible outcomes. If this story inspired you, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to Stories of Hope for more real-life tales that will warm your heart and remind you of the power of kindness.